The last league game was the trip to Norwich on New Year's Day. Ultimately, a frustrating afternoon, 1-1 the final score. Glenn, I'm going to ask you to cast your mind back, if you can. 1-0 up, in control of the game. We've seen it before, haven't we? And that's why I think we were banging our heads against the telly.
Yeah, we got a problem with scoring a second goal in away games, haven't we? I mean, Norwich. It's going to sound like sour grapes because at the end of the day, they got what they came for. But to set up like that at home is a disgrace, and it's been quite nice. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Chris Sutton earlier on. Chris Sutton is obviously heavily involved in Norwich, and he wrote a big article because he actually went to the game saying it was an absolute disgrace the way Norwich set up in a home game. Southampton are not prime Real Madrid. What on earth are we doing in a home game? It's ridiculous, and it just annoys the hell out of me that those tactics were basically rewarded in the end, and they got the point that the manager obviously wanted. We didn't do ourselves any favours. I don't think Russell Martin had his best day with the shoehorning in of Jack Stevens. I think it unbalanced the team, and we kind of wasted the first half when Norwich were determined to play with a back 10. We kind of didn't do a great deal going forward. Ironically, it was Jack Stevens who came closest to scoring when he hit the bar, but that doesn't justify that selection, I don't think. Half time, he obviously realised that it wasn't quite happening and brought Che Adams on, and we looked better. Lovely bit of play by Kyle Walker-Peters to set up the goal. Adam Armstrong is obviously deadly from there. So, but it just seemed to me that we'd worked so hard and battered our head against the wall so much to get that goal. We never really settled down after we'd scored the goal, and immediately we started to let Jonathan Rowe run from midfield, and he did it the first time, and it ended up with a shot into the side net, so we got away with it then. And then he did it again 2 seconds later, and that ended up with the equalising goal. So it was just annoying, and the referee was an utter idiot. We're going to get onto him if they'd have gone down to 10 men like they should have done. And this is not a VAR argument. It's the referee saw it and he decided that was a yellow card. Basically, Jack Stacey hitching a ride on Edozi's ankle. It's just a dreadful challenge. And, if we played against 10 men, then I'm 99% sure we would have won that game. But
I'm sure Stacey's got form for that against us as well. When he was at Bournemouth, there was one incident when we played down there where I'm sure he shoulder charged somebody into the stand and got away with it.
Yeah, he's obviously a nasty piece of work, and he was notably very quiet for the rest of the game. So, but I mean, the referee's one of these Premier League referees, and I have a problem when Premier League referees come down to referee in the Championship, because refereeing with VAR and refereeing without it's a bit like driving an automatic as opposed to driving a car with gears. It's completely different. And if you drive an automatic, you can't drive a car with gears, and it just seems that way because you don't have to make decisions. In the Premier League, that Edozie tackle, he doesn't make a decision. It probably gets upgraded. Whereas in the Championship, you've got to referee differently. You've got to make
the one on Kyle Walker-Peters as well, wasn't it? The foul where he just gets bundled over and then they get the free kick. It's like, what?
Yeah. Their guy sort of fell into him, and apparently that was a foul. But it was other things as well. I mean, in the first half, Norwich were leaving their foot in quite a lot, which they're entitled to do. But you've got to look to the referee to look after the players and referee the game properly. And he was just kind of letting them get away with everything. And it just added to the sort of total frustration of the game, really. But from our point of view, we've got to sort out scoring a second goal away from home. We do it in home games now. So that for me is the next thing for us to sort out is what to do when we go 1-0 up in away games. We against QPR we didn't score a second goal, but we at least tried to. But in this Norwich game, we got the goal and then kind of nothing. They equalised and that was the end of that. And we did have the chance in the last minute, of course. And that's the other thing. I mean, the Norwich goal, it was a lovely finish by Sargent, and he'd been on the pitch 5 minutes and he just passed it into the corner of the net. When that ball went through to Adam Armstrong, I knew he wasn't going to score. just knew, and he just smashed it straight at the goalkeeper, who didn't have to move. And it's like either side, and that's a goal. And I can't stand this "he hit it too well" argument. I mean, shut up. He might have hit it well. He didn't aim it properly, did he? You know. Put it in the...
Alfie, what is the latest on Sam Edozie? Because I think we lost Bednarek as well, then Edozie as well. It did feel like it unbalanced the team, and that tackle was, as Glen says, it was criminal, really.
Yeah, Glen's covered the tackle. I mean, it's right in front of us actually on the left, and you could see it was a bad one. And then when you watch it back, it's a clear red. But I think Russell said that he didn't bother pestering the referee at the end of the game to ask why, because there's no point. You don't get anything like that, do you? So the moment it looks like he's going to be out for the month of January, according to Russell, which obviously puts him on similar timeline to Kamaldeen Sulemana. So he said that Sam will be available to play at the start of February. So I think that end of January that includes his getting back up to fitness and getting back up to being ready. So it's lucky we've got Ryan Fraser in the form that we have. But I was actually just thinking when you were talking a minute ago, I don't know who that leaves as the backup to Ryan Fraser down that left hand side, because they've had a couple there. But who would be the next choice? Because you might have said Ryan Manning could actually do a job there, honestly, and put James Bree back. But obviously James Bree's will be out for the same timeline as well to the end of January. So they are a little bit short in those numbers there. And maybe when a winger hopefully comes in on loan this month, it's somebody who can play on both sides and just sort of fill that gap temporarily as well.
Is it one of those results, Steve, we just need to take in the context of the whole festive run? I think it was 4 games in 10 days, wasn't it? And that would have had an impact on the team. There would have been some tired legs and tired minds, and we got a point away from home.
Yeah, I mean it will have done, but at the same time, those 3 previous games were all pretty comfortable. I mean, Plymouth we somehow made a game of in the 6 minutes of injury time, but the Blackburn and Swansea games were very comfortable. The QPR game was pretty comfortable, really, in the grand scheme of things, even though it was only 1-0. So actually, they've not been as sort of overworked as they could have been. That's for sure. If all of those games had been close, then I think and we'd had to keep the same 11 due to injuries and whatnot. Then I think there's a stronger argument in that. But I think having gone 1-0 up and looked pretty comfortable with an opponent who was showing very little ambition to get beyond their own halfway line, really, then yeah, it's frustrating. And I mean, one thing Glen mentioned, the lack of away goals in terms of getting the second goal. I think it's 3 or 4 games we've scored twice away from homes this season. A lot, and we've scored him. I think we've scored in basically every game apart from Sunderland, I think, away from home. So we don't have a problem scoring. It's just going on and kind of as you say, sort of making games safe when we're taking the lead, which then means that you can coast a little bit more in the latter stages of games and preserve energy. I mean, obviously, for the next few weeks, we've got no midweek games, so that's less of a priority now. But when you're playing over those busy periods, if you can get those games won early and make changes and rest and rotate, then you're onto a winner. But unfortunately, we just didn't manage that second half particularly well at Norwich. Really, unfortunately.
Alfie, I've lost count of the players that you've spoken to in the last week or so. Am I right in thinking Flynn Downs was this week? Was that a piece recently, just talking about him and the tough time that he's had? It seems like he's not quite out of the woods or out of the toilet, as it were. Yeah, there's still...
Yeah, I think he's hopefully on the right side. I mean, Steve was right. I mean, his response to the article was bang on. It sounds like he does need a chef. I don't know exactly how you catch E. coli, but it didn't sound like a great thing to have. And he said it was 3 weeks of real torment, to be fair. And I think he was making himself available for games despite not feeling very well. And I think that was why he was coming off 55, 60, 65 every single week. But by doing that, I mean, when you have that kind of illness, so, digestive illness that obviously leads to those bad symptoms you know about, you can't really fuel for the games because everything you eat is you're not getting the nutrients from it. So yeah, tough for him, but he's had a week off now, and I think he'll be back hopefully to his best. Just got to keep him out of the kitchen.
Let's do our TSP player of the week. There's going to be I think a few contenders for this. Steve, I'm going to start with you. Who's stood out? We'll take the Norwich game if you like, and we'll take the cup game as well. Anybody that you want to put forward for the social media poll?
I think the obvious one's probably Ryan Fraser. 2 goals and an assist yesterday. So yeah, basically got the game done early in that one. Did okay at Norwich. Nothing particularly to write home about, but was all right. Probably the best performance over the 2 games combined, I think, of the very few players that did feature in both.
Yeah, I assume you got man of the match at the weekend too. Was there anyone else, Glenn, that stood out for you?
Taylor Harwood-Bellis, but we say that every week. It's justified, perfectly justified to say it every week. But he's obviously played both games, and he's. I mean, James was talking about a Rolls Royce of a player. He's kind of become that for us. It just seems like there's, I think he had a bit of a mistake against Watford in that last minute goal we conceded, but other than that, he's been excellent really ever since he came into the team. But no, 2 very good performances from him. And as Alfie said earlier on, he's now become a bit of an attacking weapon with the balls across. And that was and Ryan Fraser, you mentioned, I mean, that was such a good goal, that first goal. The movement that Fraser darting from the fullback behind the defender to pick up that pass from Harwood-Bellis. So yeah, those 2 for me are the obvious 2.
It was like the goals he used to score against us. Alfie, is there anyone else? We got those 2. Can we make it?
I think those probably are the only 2 that I would nominate. But to populate the poll, I would say for the second half performance, the second half performance alone, yesterday I would say Charlie Alcaraz. But I think he was one of those players that Glenn alluded to, that Russell spoke about, that was maybe just doing a bit too much, was maybe running around, not playing his position, trying to make things happen, trying to impress. But in that second half, he had a hand in all 3 goals. He looked a class above, like he should have done. So for that second half performance, I'll go Charlie.